patrons and other people to vote for the Virgin Orbit. Oh, we're live. Hello.
Yes. Hi. Oh, yeah. No, potentially you could do that.
That would, well, I wouldn't like to be seen to influencing an election, but yeah, there's a lot to say about it, I think.
Well, that's interesting. Hold on. So we are stakeholders of the show.
We are stakeholders of the show, yes. Well, quite significant stakeholders, because without us, there is no show.
I think, yeah, right? I think, yeah. So we should... Okay, so when it comes to influencing, is it ethical for us to do that? We are stakeholders, and we are communicating our opinion on what we would like to hear about next week. I personally don't want. There's one that I would prefer over that one.
I fancy it because I think there's a lot to learn out of failure, but I think actually it could be over with fairly quickly, just like the launch was. I didn't mean that. But yeah, I think that there'd be more to talk about if it was successful, and hopefully they're going to do another one fairly soon. Yes, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing
my World War thing anyway, so just not into the depth and thing. I'm just going to focus on one specific element.
Check that out. I put it in the blurb.
But if they, quite frankly, if they're going to vote on things like what they voted for this week, then I'm quite frankly, I think they're having a bit of a laugh at my expense.
Okay, yeah, Kim. Okay, are we talking about the elephant in the room?
Well,
are we acknowledging the elephant right now?
We've got to talk about the elephant in the room for the entire show.
No, I know, but are we acknowledging it now, or are we going to let this pre-show bliss live a little bit longer?
Well, the fact that I've had to write the actual blurb instead of putting it into GPT because it was an entire 44 page.
No, you just
44 pages.
You throw the entirety of it in there and just say summarize this.
It's too long.
I know.
Too many words. Not that I tried. Summarizing one paragraph.
Well, hey, well done on that blurb. Yeah, so let's talk about the elephant in the room here. The story tonight, a real banger, that's for sure. I messed up, man.
No, really?
Again, I feel like look, this makes me wonder how many of my mistakes go unnoticed because they're not the stories that are selected. I'm wondering if I'm offloading some of that responsibility to the people who participate in the polls. But I thought this was a different report, and had I downloaded it and opened it up, I would have seen that it wasn't the report that I thought it was.
Well done.
But that being said, you all wanted to hear about this.
Yeah, so is that because they truly want to hear about it? At which point, if they truly want to hear about it, who are we to stand in the way of talking about it and analysing it? Or did they go, we know that they don't close the poll until sort of a couple of hours before the show, and therefore if we give them normally we give them a 1-2 pages to do. If we give them a 44-page report, let's see how they do that and having a laugh at our expense.
Well, just joke's on you, because we both read that 40-something page report, all 40-something pages of it.
Yeah. And really interesting.
Really interesting, for sure.
I like that bit on page 36. Did you read that bit on page 36? That was really cool.
Oh, yeah. That part on page 36, all about the thing.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. Exactly that. Not the other thing on page 33, because that was a bit naff if I'm
now
being brutally honest.
Now, Barry, here's the real question: which reference are you talking about on page 36?
Right.
Or sorry, rather, it's Appendix C. So which in-person conference or workshop are you talking about there particularly?
Oh yeah. Oh, I should have picked an early page. Would help if I'd read this thing.
Oh wait, hang on. It depends if you're going by the page number. Hey, is your audio going too?
No, your audio's gone mad. Oh, my audio gone mad.
On my end, your audio's going mad.
Oh,
so we got to figure this out.
So,
Anyone?
because
want to let us know whose audio's bad. I'm gonna do some quick investigating.
Oh, whose audio's bad? Is it both of us or just one of us?
Audio is bad. Yes, we get it. Whose?
Oh, for both.
For both.
It's both of us.
Oh, okay, great.
That means it's a restream problem.
That does mean it's a restream problem. So I'm having trouble hearing Barry. Barry's having trouble hearing me. Everyone's having trouble hearing both of us. So that's wonderful.
I can now hear you fine, but now the
great. I can't. No,
I
cannot hear you. Great. Unmute and mute your mic again. Mute and unmute. That did it for me.
How's that now?
I just got.
Is that better?
A little bit. I still hear some choppy, but yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay. Sometimes it helps if I switch my camera off, doesn't it? Right, let's do it. And a bit of that. How's that sound now? Any good?
Yeah, I think we're good. Cool. All right, so what were we talking?
It's still
what?
Yeah, you've got about a 1.5 second delay between video and audio.
Oh, you do too.
Oh no!
The audio is great, but the delay is killer. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
What is going on, Restream?
What?
All right.
Yeah. I wonder if I.
How about now?
Sorry, say something else again. I wasn't watching your lips.
Saying something again, so that way you can see whether or not.
You seem to be back in sync now. Am I in sync or out of sync? I must
not
be out
yet.
of sync.
No, just do one more cycle on it all.
Right, let's do that. Okay, that's me back. And how am I synced back up? Oh, yeah, apparently we synced. Oh,
I don't.
No.
Well, I can't see you synced on my end.
Okay. That could be interpreted many ways. Okay. I guess there's not a vast amount we can do about it. It sort of is what it is. Unless I'd been out completely back in.
Look, as long as we don't run over each other's words, I think we're okay. Because it looks like on the stream you're okay too.
Oh, good. But I always look good on the stream. I mean, let's face it. I'm me. Hello.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta have some sex appeal on the show, so that's why you're here. Yes.
What do you think of my my background now, which is a lot closer, and you can only see half of the thing because we're in this format, which unfortunately you can just see factors.
Here, should we make it so that way? Yeah, there you go. The Human Factors Podcast. You can't see 1202, and I can see some reflection of that computer in the background.
Yeah,
there.
you can. Oh, that's irritating, isn't it? Because if I
yeah.
Oh, it's this screen. Oh, that's my main screen. Oh, rubbish. I only put that up. I did my first 1202 interview of the year yesterday, and so I had to get this set up. But if you can see, over this side, you've got my Human Factors dragon just over here, Huff, HF.
Oh yeah,
magic dragon. And then on my proper citing of books and things to make it look like I'm intelligent, because intelligent people have books behind.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, these are all Star Wars books, but yeah. Actually, speaking of books, I did at your recommendation. This is funny because, I don't know, for those of us in the field, I don't know about you, Barry, but I rarely get new books, like workbooks.
Yeah.
I picked this one up at a colleague's recommendation.
Yay!
Specifically, the second edition.
Yep.
I bought this used on eBay for pretty cheap.
It's good. I mean, also because you've interviewed one of the authors.
Oh, yes, I have, huh?
See.
Have I? Yes, I have. Yeah. I have. Awesome. That's right. I did recognize that name. Yeah, Mr. Paul Salmon's right there. Paul Salmon right there. Number 2. Talk to him. Now I feel a little guilty about not buying it direct.
I wouldn't. I'm fairly sure they're all loaded. So
Okay, good, great.
it's all good.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the story tonight, man. This one's a real. This is a let's toot our own horn about what we've done this year. By the TRB.
Which I think is fair. That's we've all got to do. Maybe that's what we need to do. We need to
a human factors cast,
50-page report of of everything that we've achieved this year. Or not, because I really couldn't be bothered.
I did that at our last lab meet, but you were not there.
I wasn't there. Where was I at?
I think you were getting.
Last weekend was I went on my lads' weekend away.
Oh, good for you. Never mind.
Yeah, because I told you if I was going to be able to do thinking, it would be from a pub. And unfortunately, the pub I was in was a sports bar. And it was quite loud.
Yeah.
So I didn't think you'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on which sport you're watching. Anyway.
Well, I wasn't actually watching any sports. I was more lifting beer.
Gotcha.
Well,
I'll get you caught up on that 50-page report later.
Cool.
So I had something happen to me today that I wasn't expecting to have happen to me. I thought I still had a few years left before this started happening. I'm sitting and working at my desk, and I get an email. Thank you for your purchase. Wait, what? There's a PlayStation email. Thank you for your purchase. Looney Tunes expansion for your Hot Wheels Unleashed game.
Brilliant. And how's he enjoying the game?
He's upset it wasn't the Batman one. So am I. The bad thing about PlayStation is that they don't let you do refunds through digital purchases. I mean, like, if it was like $50-$60, I'd be like maybe writing in, but it was just a couple bucks. But yeah, I didn't expect it. So he's 3 and a couple months old. I was expecting this when he was like 4 or 5 and getting like a bill for $500 from Roblox going, there you go. But crazy.
Them couple of bucks, I'd like to say maybe it was one off, but it doesn't get any cheaper. As in, I went to drop off some stuff to my daughter at university yesterday. And so I dropped some of the bits off that she wanted me to bring, like a new pair of Crocs and stuff that she got, which was fine. And then she was like, "Oh, Dad, you don't fancy taking me food shopping, do you?" And so then I have to take a food shopping and all this sort of stuff just to do all that. So yeah, you're a couple of bucks for a game expansion. It only gets worse, really, from there. It's downhill.
Oh, I know. I'm excited though about it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, no, that wears off.
I figured as much. Thank you for just putting me in my place. I appreciate that.
No, I mean it's that first time excitement. I get it. It's so we should really talk about the actual notes. So done a blurb, and
I've done some key takeaways for some of these things. I feel like this is one of those ones where you just wing it and see what happens.
Okay, stop there. Your audio's gone again.
Oh no!
Oh no! I don't. I think you're back. I think that's all right. It keeps on going to breaking up, and then now I think you're okay again.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't think the audio synced up again, but hey, we'll just have to suck that one up.
All right. Well, we'll try again. Trying again.
Yeah.
Actual notes. Actual notes. I think we just wing it. What do you say?
Yes, it might not be the longest one we ever do.
No, this show is going to be like 15 minutes tops.
Yeah.
But at least the
I
news
think
part of it.
I think that bit, my first initial reaction comment, is something we can bounce around quite a lot, because I think your last initial reaction comment and my first one is something we need to bounce around.
Yeah. Hey, I got an idea here. Why don't we bounce this? Why don't we bounce this and just like,
hey, well, I'm gonna lead into, if you take,
I'm thinking we just take that out and then come back to it and do like, okay, top 3 webinars, this, that, top 3 publications, this, that, and then we talk about them, you know, and just dig into them there, because I feel like this might be a little bit lengthy blurb here. Otherwise, especially it gets a little weird with lists too when you're in an audio.
Yeah, that's fair. I just tried to generate content.
I know. Generate content. Yeah, hit the button, generate content. Hey, if you're watching or listening live, we thank you. We love having live viewers and listeners with us. If you have any comments about any of the stories tonight, I guess the story, the title is not. So it's the title of tonight's episode is both a pun and event.
Yeah.
It's driving us wild. Not because it's a good thing, but because it's we're racking our brains trying to do this one here. Yeah, if you're watching, listening, if you have anything you want to talk about, drop it in the place wherever you're at, because we're everywhere.
Yes, please do that. Otherwise, it's going to be a really short show. It doesn't help that I've got like a really sore throat as well.
Oh no!
There seems to be lots of bugs and stuff going around the UK at the moment. And a lot of people are hypothesizing that because we haven't had the same interactions because of COVID, that this is now the things like traditional flu and all that is sort of and the bugs and stuff that we'd normally have really good tolerance against, because you had sort of like a couple of years in lockdown, then this is sort of coming back and hitting us harder than it usually would. Which I sort of avoided quite a lot of it. My daughter and my wife stuff had sort of coughs and stuff, and I'd avoided it until sort of late last night, early this morning, and then I was like, and so I had to feel really rubbish all day. So, but it's fine. It's all good. Do that.
Okay, I'm gonna make I'm gonna make an edit here.
Oh, you can't just leave it alone, can you?
No, I can't, because you called out a very specific group that I don't want to call out because of reasons.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay.
Because it's not just them. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So I have the report up in front of me. I have the other reports that we have that they reference there up somewhere. I find them. Oh.
Why would you have the other reports up as well? That's like a lot of reading.
Boredom. It's show prep. It's show prep, man. You gotta. It's the prep for the show. So, by the way, I just want to give you a heads up with the one more things this week. There is a question that is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 questions in one. So we can take our time answering some of those, if time permitting, which I think there may be. And there's some towards the tail end that I'd like to tackle first, because I feel like we get those ones less often. So we'll kind of go through those ones and then maybe take Yeah, that's a good call.
I know, right?
Good call. Wow, that's sex appeal and brains. How am I so lucky?
What my wife says. Like, never. Oh, I know that. Oh, had my phone upgraded this week. So I upgraded from. I went from the 12, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and the difference is astounding. I'm joking. You can barely tell the difference.
Okay.
Annoyingly, I already had a phone case, obviously, for the 12 Pro, and the 14. All they've done is move the camera bit a little bit. I mean, obviously, it's there was an increase in performance and stuff like that, but not so that I would say is noticeable significantly. And but I still had to buy a new case because they moved the camera slightly, which I find irritating.
Do you remember when technology used to be noticeably different for the next version of something? Like even the latest video game consoles. It's like there's not a marked difference in graphics, although I'd say, the processing power behind the scenes is much higher, so they can do more complex things, but
I guess isn't that massive sort of, whoa, have you seen just how, I mean, like take the iPhone. When you went from the iPhone, sort of the second iPhone to the iPhone 3, and then you went to the iPhone 3GS, they were just the simple bits were just marked step changes.
Right.
Whereas now you're on the, like I said, I didn't even bother upgrading to the 13 because I was like, well, what's the point? My 12 is working perfectly fine. And I think the only really significant thing I think is mind blowing. I'm still not that mind blown to do it, is where Samsung have their folding screens, the folding screen technology, which I think is really cool. But it's really cool, but still not cool enough that I actually want it. I like it as a sort of as a cool gadget thing, but it doesn't make me want to shell out sort of between £500 and £1,000. So
yeah, no. I get you.
I get you. However, the difference between the Rodecaster and the Rodecaster 2, which I was looking at, so the Rode have delivered their Rodecaster 2 into the marketplace now. That looks quite cool, and I can't really justify spending any money on it, but I'd love to be able to get hold of a second-hand one.
I know there's a couple key pieces of like digital kit that I would really like to have for production. And I'm like trying to justify. I'm like, no, wait, because we just wait. I'm trying to think of how much I can say publicly.
Yeah, no, there's I think I don't use, so the Rodecaster I've got, I don't use to anywhere near its full potential. But it was like yesterday or whatever, you do recording through Restream and stuff like that, but it's so easy just to hit a button just to get your backup recording in, to be able to get some other bits and bobs going, and to push stuff through it. I don't need it, but I like it.
Yeah.
But that's part of me. What I'm trying to do at this end now with this new setup is to try and get. So I've repositioned my camera quite a lot, and still can't get it perfect yet, but it's getting there.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
I'm tired now. Oh, it's been a very long day.
Yeah. Yeah. It has. It's only 3:00. almost 3:00 for me. So I got
a lot of the day left to go.
Yes. Yeah. I can't talk about any of the fun stuff that I was working on. Just know that I was working on some other stuff today that was very cool.
Cool.
that you all will see soon.
Yay.
It's the thing that I showed you before, Barry. It was along those same lines.
Cool.
It was setting up some things to happen at certain intervals with that thing.
Yeah.
In the lead up to that thing.
Cool. Oh, I did something cool yesterday as well.
Oh.
So the second video that you kindly recorded for me, for the
yeah,
final, I cut that into the original that I had, but then that's made it all too long. So I've had to go in and splice and dice some bits, and I've now got the new final 3 with you introing it, the advert and the outro, and I'm quite pleased with it. It's quite cool.
Oh, good. What'd you slice and dice?
So I've had to. So the actual Human Factors Cast advert, I've had to take some bits, some chunks out of that, but in a way that you can't really notice. So it's enough to keep the thing. I've just taken some of the peripheral stuff out to try and keep it it's still over a minute, but
it's like the newsread stories and
I sort of keep flavors of everything, but there's some bits I just had to sort of take out because otherwise, if you try and just do a little bit of everything, you lose all of it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I could. What's the version of it?
You can share and then do a little.
I could production assets, intro, outro, Nick final 3. Right, if I open that.
Just before Barry gets to the final 3.
Oh. Yikes.
Right. If I put that on that screen, and I share my screen. I know.
Yeah.
We can do this 4 minutes ago, can't we?
We can do this. We can do this. Here, I'll kill the music so we can hear the audio and everything, and then I will do this. And then I'm gonna do this. And
really?
then okay. Yeah, wow, look at my face. All right, and then let me just kill the graphics.
The final 3. My name's Nick Roome. Let me tell you about this. Technology in our world is evolving at a phenomenal pace, and keeping up with what that means in the human factors world can be challenging. That's where Human Factors Cast comes in. Human Factors Cast is a weekly podcast that highlights and breaks down stories that are chosen by you, the Human Factors community.
New York State is giving out hundreds of robots as companions for the elderly.
Buttons in cars are safer and quicker to use than touchscreen.
A prototype just achieved a major milestone that actually fits the description of a flying car.
The show provides perspective based on experiences from different domains and different industries. We even cover some of the hottest conferences in the field. On this episode, we're recapping EHF, Ergonomics and Human
I'm
Factors
glad you kept hottest in.
Conference, Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, UXPA International. Join me, Nick Roome.
And me, Barry Kirby.
Every Friday morning when Human Factors Cast drops on YouTube and your favorite podcast directory. And remember, it depends. And now I'm going to send it back over to Barry for the final 3.
That was my favorite.
That was your favorite one? Oh my god. All right. Well, okay. You know what? It's your show, man. You do what you want.
You're right, and I will.
Also, smart man taking out the comments about the best interviews, because that's clear competition for your show.
Oh yeah. No, that was the only chunk that I could idea, and it wasn't actually because it was the interviews. It's because certainly from the UK perspective, nobody knows who they are.
No one knows.
So I couldn't get my head around. I was going to try and cut in some pictures of other people, but then the audio didn't matter anyway. I need to go back and clean up some of the editing because I was running out of minutes before my before the interview I did. I was like, I need this to run. I need this to go. But yes, it was good fun cutting it together.
That was a fun watch. I'm excited.
Right, I'm ready to go.
I know this music. You know what I'm also excited for? I'm also excited for the show tonight. You want to do it?
Is no an appropriate answer at this point?
I mean, no is an acceptable answer. We're still going to do the show.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I guess I do need to find out where my mute button is because I feel I might be coughing through this. So
Okay.
I know where it's at. It's all good.
All right. Well, we're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about our favorite story of 2023 so far. Right after this.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
$270. That means there have been 269 at least episodes before this one. It's episode 270. We're recording this live on January 12th, 2023. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome, joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello and good evening.
Hello and good sleepy evening to you. We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about this report from the Transportation Research Board, their 2022 annual report. And later, we're going to be answering some questions from the community about UX research being overhyped as a field, human factors engineering career help, and gaining experience for grad school. But first, we have some programming notes for y'all. If you're not aware, we have completed, I guess, our Patreon refresh. Updated some role titles, clarified some benefits, added some new things. So, Human Factors Cast Academy is new. And we also have something else coming soon, Human Factors Cast Roundtable. You can basically pay to have yourself on your own podcast with myself and Barry for our patrons. Even if you're not a Patreon patron, it's worth heading over there because we do post all of our stories for next week on our the polls we put up there. Wow, that wasn't rehearsed at all. We put the polls for next week's stories up there where everyone can vote, whether you're a Patreon or not. All you need is an account. But next week we have Inside Japan's long experiment in automating elder care, the best of CES 23. Please pick that one. And then we also have first ever UK spaceflight set for January 9th, which was
Pick that
last
one.
week.
Pick that one.
So you have my favorite. You have Barry's favorite. Barry,
sorry.
What's the latest over at 1202?
So 1202, obviously the live episode is still what you can see is the 2022 in review, but I'm really excited about the fact that we've got some really cool interviews lined up for 2023. So the next episode to come out will be my future look onto 2023, what we can hope to expect. And I recorded my first interview yesterday, and I'm not going to say who it was with yet, but legend isn't going far enough. A human factors legend, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh man, can you just type it to me so I can see? Well,
No.
Hey, that's great. Wait, no. All right, let's get into Human Factors news so I can forget about this. That's right. This is the part of the show all about Human Factors news. Barry, what is our exciting story this week?
Exciting story. Anyway, this week's story is Transportation Research Board 2022 annual report. So you've all excelled yourself this week. Rather than give us our usual article, which is normally a page, maybe 2 pages long, we have a 44-page report to digest and talk about. But Nick and I have done it. This report is an interesting one for us because actually it's all about transportation, something that users engage with or are affected by every single day. It's produced, as we said, by the Transportation Research Board. For those of you unfamiliar with the TRB, especially outside of the US, the TRB is one of the 7 program divisions of the National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine, a private, non-profit institution that provides expert advice on some of the most pressing challenges facing the nation and the world. This 2022 annual report summarizes the TRB's accomplishments in each of its major program areas and how the non-profit organization has served the nation and the global transportation professional community throughout the year. TRB provides leadership in transportation improvements and innovation through trusted, timely, impartial, and evidence-based information exchange, research, and advice regarding all modes of transportation. Despite the significant impact you would think that human factors plays in transportation research, actually in this report, it simply doesn't get a mention in the main body, though it does get in the titles of 2 reports listed in the appendix. Equally baffling from my perspective is the lack of mention of human error, user error, UX, UI, or any of really what we would call our big hitter keywords. But they have had major drives to include more diverse voices in transportation research, as well as devoting a significant section of climate resiliency and sustainability, which is, something that's quite close to my heart. So, Nick, when you reviewed the report, did you get transported away by the content of this report? Are you driven to any new nuggets of knowledge, or was it all just a bit congested for you?
You were so close.
I
You were
know.
so close to landing it. Yeah, let's so the title of this episode is a pun and a double entendre. So it's driving us wild for a couple of reasons. One is because this is not the report I thought it was when I selected it for the poll to have you all, our listeners, vote. And so, oops. I think the report I was thinking of, we'll talk about in just a little bit. But it's still got some good human factors applications, despite them not mentioning any of the big hitter keywords. Although I do have one that was mentioned in there, safety. So there's that. And yeah, I know, Barry. I see you. Hey, I'll let you talk in just a second, but I just want to say, great job, TRB. I guess. I mean, this to me is the end of the year report that they put out to kind of say, here's everything that we did. As kind of like a documentation piece, and it's not the thing I thought it was, which was kind of consolidating 2022 data.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things, isn't it? I think as a body, you want to reflect on your successes. You want to reflect on what you've achieved, and there's a lot of really interesting information here. And it's an organization, it boasts over 8,000 volunteers, and they've produced a significant body of knowledge. And so, as great job, congratulations. I do have a problem that, as I said, that human factors is only mentioned twice. Given some of the other things that you hear and you think would be big hitters within the topics I've expected, but then there's no mention of AI either. If you did a search for AI, that doesn't get a mention, which is a bit worrying. But I think my takeaway thing is that that our listeners and our viewers, I think we're trying to test us. I think they're having a bit of a laugh to see they see us week in, week out, take articles of varying quality and varying length and produce some top quality analytical review of these things. So they're trying to challenge us this week by giving us this 44-page review, which they know we only get hold of this a couple of hours before the show, and so therefore they want to see whether we're up to that challenge of reading 44 pages and coming up with an articulate summary and insightful knowledge or in insightful analysis of it, and I'm not sure whether I'm up to the challenge.
No, we got it.
We got it. Well, we've done it. I didn't need dinner tonight. I didn't have to talk with the family at all. I just sat here and read this report, and I know now a lot more.
So think about what you've done and go vote on next week's story for the top stories of CES.
Yes, and I look forward next week to talking about the space flight from the UK. That I'm looking forward to.
It's going to be the Japanese elderly story. I know it. Anyway, so let's actually get into this report. So we're still going to do our due diligence. And yes, you mentioned that there's not a whole lot of mention of human factors concepts in here. There's a big one, safety, right, which I kind of called out. But you're right. This is a very high level report where it's kind of a meta report of all the reports that they've put out. It's not meta in the sense that it analyzes everything contained with those. It's a recap report.
It's a summary.
So it's a summary. So it doesn't actually go into some of the topics that some of the sub reports, if you want to call them that way, some of their top reports that they've put out throughout the year, would cover. So I think maybe you've pulled out some of the top 3 webinars and the top 3 publications. There we go. That's the word.
Yeah.
You want to go through those?
I was going to say, how about I take the webinars, you take the publications?
That sounds great.
Because I mean, we know what it's like to do a webinar. I mean, we do them every week. They're not easy, and trying to get people engaged and trying to come up with topics that the people want to work with. So I've got a lot of respect for. I mean, basically, they put out 60 webinars in a year, which is more than one a week.
One a week.
So that's about the same cadence as what we do with this podcast. And so when they've done it, they've done over 60, but their top 3 most attended, therefore the most popular in third place was transportation in an aging society. The future is now. Now we've talked about this before on the podcast. Then 2 was pedestrian analysis, current practice, resources, and applications, which is really good. It's sort of getting into what looking at what the user group is effectively, and what the target audience is. And then at number 1, which slightly baffles me, is temporary pavement markings and removal practices in work zones, which they had over 300 people attending that webinar. So I mean, stunning.
Look, I know it sounds yeah, that is a lot of people, right? We can't even get that many people to listen to listen live for us. Although we do this weekly, and it's a different story every week. So I do want to mention though that this is like, folks from every different state, many different cities, municipalities, who their job is to do this stuff. And so it makes sense that there would be a lot of attendance for some of the latest and breaking news in pavement markings and removal practices.
Right. I mean, the good thing around these sort of webinars, and they're not dissimilar to the webinars we do with the Chartered Institute of Economics and Human Factors. It's not like what we're doing here, where we find out the latest news of the week. These are all coalescing people who've got a specific interest. And so I would imagine that the people attending the webinar on temporary pavement markings is a different user cohort to the pedestrian analysis, is different again to the aging society. So, and within them different topics, when you look at the entire list, they've covered a wide range of things, and all credit to them to be able to draw in that sort of audience, because it's not just I guess here we rely on or take advantage of people who come in and just listen to every week about the sort of whatever it is that we're talking about that week. Whereas here, you've got to advertise what your particular topic is. You've got to push it out there to make sure the relevant people know that it's actually going to happen, and reach out to them to say, look, this is happening. Would you like to listen to it or even participate in it? So there's a lot more effort that goes into, or there is a lot of effort that goes into doing these specific topic events to make sure that they fulfill the brief, really.
Yeah, and it's hard to talk about this from a human factors perspective. So I'm going to talk about it from like a science communication perspective. This is great that you have so many attendees on what I would call niche areas, like niche within a niche, right? Like the pavement markings and removal practices is a niche within surface transportation, which is a niche in itself of at least for us, human factors, right? And so how do you advertise that to those people? And you got to understand that these are not just human factors professionals. These are folks who are, actual practitioners and people who do the removal themselves, right? So like they need to know some of these tools and techniques, which is great. And I think that can be, that you can say something there for training, that having these recurring or I guess more than once a week webinars on various topics is a great way to tackle training for folks, especially if it has some practical applications. I think overall, there's a lot to be said about the webinar format, especially if it's coming off as like a classroom type of information dissemination piece. If it's a like open discussion, that to me is like that's more like what we do here, right? We do an open discussion on some of these topics every week, but if it's more sort of best practices communication, then that's I think more education for practitioners. Well, we did mention that they did do over 150 publications in 2022. their 3 top downloaded ones were the Highway Safety Manual User Guide. Now, this is the one that I thought that we were actually looking at today. Now, this is this document, Barry, has a whole intro section on human factors dedicated towards human factors. It mentions it in the title. So
Cool.
here's what you're talking about, right? Some key takeaways from this one here were basically focusing on roadway safety, predictive methods, so like estimating safety effectiveness, the expected and predicted crash frequencies, and then they also looked at guidance on applications. So for different roadway segments, interchanges, intersections, actually applying different things to these types of roadways they had in that safety manual. And that one's always a fun one to peek at. I think we may have actually talked about it on the show before, but it's always one of those ones where you peel it open and you're just like, ooh, this is good. This is juicy. There's a lot of human factor stuff in here. That's why I thought this week would be great to talk about that, but it's not that. So let's get into number 2.
But, sorry, just before you jump into number
yeah.
2, quick question. That
Stop
highway
me.
safety manual, is this, but then that says highway safety manual user guide. So is that just a user guide to be able to use the safety manual?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. No. Maybe. I don't know.
That's a rubbish title. Anyway, sorry.
I had the same question, and I don't think it is. In fact, I was just looking at the report, and I don't think that is the case, because you're saying it would be a user guide for the safety manual.
Yeah, which would then lead me to think that the safety manual was really hard to use. But anyway, sorry, just ambiguous titling.
Well, no, because there's a section in here using the highway safety manual user guide. So they have a section on how to use the guide. And then they have an overview of the highway safety manual. So maybe it is. I don't know. Now I'm confused.
So the
Great
thing
job
that you actually
confusing me.
wanted us to be talking about tonight, you're not actually sure what it is either, right?
I'm fairly sure I know what it is when I see it. It's like art.
But it's got some human factors in it. So it actually mentions the term. So we like it, no matter what it's about. Anyway,
Exactly.
sorry, I rudely interrupted you with facts and stuff.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what this whole show is about. So we're gonna get into the number 2 most published there, which was recent decline in public transportation ridership. And the what was it? Analysis, cues, and responses. That's the full title. Recent decline in public transportation ridership analysis, causes, and responses. Some of the key takeaways here were basically looking at some of the causes of ridership decline. There's the causes in the title, but also looking at sort of multi-city evaluation. So when they're taking transportation from city to city, also looking at some trends for bus ridership by time of day. And they also did a lot of different case studies looking at specific cities and evaluating future strategies. And I think we actually selected this as a top story early last year. I feel like it must have been, because I do remember reading some of this where it was actually, there's a lot of human factors related stuff in here, reducing those barriers to entry with respect to public transportation. We actually talked about on the show before, this might have been before your time on the show, Barry, but talking about the sprawling nature of cities and speed limits, and basically what all that means when you have higher speed limits and greater distances between cities makes things less walkable and less transportable, and therefore, public transportation can't necessarily handle those types of multi-city relationships. So it's interesting for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say, and that one, it was definitely before me, because I remember listening to it as I was doing DIY in the back garden, because you were also talking about equality of basically people people from different types of backgrounds being able to use it, and then also some people being excluded from it. So I remember it well.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the TRB had this whole in this report that we're talking about tonight has the whole section on basically inclusion and equity, and so that's great to see that they are sensitive to those topics. that folks may not have the same access to transportation. Right, and then the last, I guess, the most downloaded, most most downloaded is the metric they're looking at here is traffic signal control strategies for pedestrians and bicyclists. Key takeaways of this: they were looking at some analyses of crash data. They looked at guidance for pedestrian and cyclist needs, and then also looked at performance measures and interventions with respect to those performance measures for interventions, I think. So really interesting that one in particular got the highest, most downloaded. I'm curious though, didn't you talk to Mr. Paul Salmon about cycling at some point?
Yes, no, we did. They did and still are doing a study in Australia around cycling and basically cycling near misses and cycling accidents and things. And so they've developed a tool, and I think it's called Crit, but I could be wrong in that. But I think it's called Crit, where they encourage cyclists to do self-reporting, to be able to develop more data, because there is a lot of data around cars and vehicles in general, because there is legislative need to report that type of data. But actually, when you look at pedestrians and pedestrian near misses, are quite a big deal. So if you maybe step out into the road and then step back because a car cuts across you, then you're not going to go and report that to anybody. And particularly cyclists. And here in the UK, there is lots of focus of cycling, particularly in London, where you've got some really really busy roads. I would never cycle in London. It looks really, really, really unsafe. But you've got cyclist behaviour in of itself causing some, some cyclists sort of jump red lights and things like that. And then you just got people big buses, big cars, big these big SUVs driving too close to cyclists and driving into cyclist lanes. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting type of report that I think would be useful over here around, how do you actually use traffic signals to control them.
Yeah, and I do remember we snuck a little bit of that conversation in at the tail end of our conversation about AGI with Paul at HFES this year. So if you want to go listen to that, feel free to go listen to our interview with Paul Salmon from HFES. And then obviously over at 1202, it sounds like you talked a little bit more in depth on it. So there's the top 3 most downloaded. So what do you think, just at a high level, Barry? What does this tell us about the state of public transportation? What are some of the interesting topics that you are seeing trend wise?
So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that I think we are. There's a few things that I'm really keen that are really excited to see in there. That there is this focus on climate change and sustainability around transport systems, and so they did. There was one of the publications that they give out there that was based on making sure that the aerospace systems are ready for sustainable fuels, sustainable technologies, and things like that. So the fact that they've got that on a focus, despite them not appearing in the sort of the top 3 or top 5, most attended or most downloaded things, they still feel the need to push that forward. The other interesting bit I thought was actually not necessarily around transport itself, but around the way that they've organized themselves. And they took a bit of a poll about whether people wanted to meet face-to-face or webcam, doing a hybrid model. And actually, after the 2021 virtual meeting, they surveyed all their attendees, and and they overwhelmingly said that they wanted to do the face-to-face meeting. And really what they sort of highlighted was doing a proper full hybrid model where, you can do a face-to-face and you can get equally as rich an engagement, remotely, was just logistically, as they quote to quote it from the report, was logistically and financially infeasible. So they actually worked out the ways of doing, basically making sure that their in-person event was as safe as it possibly could be. And then they could do some other stuff as well. And because they've done these webinars and things like that, I think they've got a good blend there, which I think I sort of feel from, that times with my own personal experience, having done I'm now much more comfortable doing online events. I'm comfortable doing in-person events. I still struggle with hybrid events, trying to get get that balance of get the balance right for both people. So I just thought it was interesting. It's the first time I've seen in print an organization actually deliver that sort of evaluation.
Yeah, just taking a look at the trends in the field of surface transportation here, looking at the top 3 webinars, the top 3 downloaded publications here. There's a trend that I'm noticing, and I don't know if this has been a trend over the last couple of years or if it's just this last year. There's a lot more focus on the individual pedestrian piece, right? Or sort of less vehicle related, right? So you have this this accessibility when it comes to transportation and public transportation. You have the pedestrians and bicyclists in the top publications, and then in the webinars you have a pedestrian analysis. And so that to me tells me that and even the aging society a little bit. I'd imagine that that's kind of focusing on the individual and how things are not necessarily accessible to them when as you age. So to me, that is a really important distinction, because you're then putting that focus onto the individual that is not interacting with a 2-ton vehicle. That it seems like there's like more of a focus on the actual people walking about or choosing these more pro-social behaviors, and that to me it would indicate that focus towards the climate ergonomics ultimately. Because if you're focusing on walking, if you're focusing on public transportation, if you're focusing on cycling, then that to me would communicate they're not looking at cars as much. They still are, but the hot stuff right now is looking at, well, how can we make things more green, more sustainable with those methods of transportation. So that's what stuck out to me, at least from the top few that we're looking at here.
Yeah, and if you look through the entire report, they talk about the communication section at the end as well, and it's more. It seems to be a lot more about the transportation system as a whole, rather than just looking at the automobile, and them sort of things. As you say, it's looking at, right, how does the pedestrian interact with it is looking at a whole systems approach, or a SOZA, a system of systems approach. Which is really good. And then it goes a lot more into respecting and understanding the different types of representation that it has. So it talks a lot more about LGBTQIA plus. It talks about Women's History Month, Black History Month, about having the diversity of input, which just screams awareness. Which is really good. And I think that if they keep on going in this way, this what is underpinning this report, which I possibly should have said right at the beginning, is they have a 5-year plan, and we're only into year 2 of that 5-year plan. So it was launched last year, and running all the way out to 2027. And so this is year 2 of that strategic plan. And if they keep on going in this route, then I look forward to talking about it next year.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it gets selected for a story next year. I mean, but you're right. You're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. They're still kind of early on in this plan, and I don't know. It's fun to look at a domain like surface transportation. Interests me. It's not my area of expertise. It interests me because there's often a lot of really fun little interesting things that will pop up, and you say, oh, I didn't. You're looking at the width of those markings on the. Okay, that's cool. And And then you start to think about, well, how is that any different from looking at, sort of the differences in an interface? Because the road is the interface in a lot of ways for pedestrians, and well, it's part of the interface. But it's interesting to me. So anyway, all that being said, I picked the wrong article. I picked the wrong report, and we're gonna. Any last words on this one, Barry?
No, I think congratulations to them. They've clearly had a good year. I'd like to see something like how we can apply the learnings from this over here in the UK, and how we would seek to do that. But I think I need to talk to different people to make that happen.
No, I think you flip everything on the other side of the road, right? Is that how it works?
Oh, that's true. And we have slightly more lights.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you to our Patreons and all of our listeners this week for selecting our topic. Thank you to our friends over at the Transportation Research Board for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to our original articles and our weekly roundups on our blog, or you can join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories. Like I said, you can always vote for the next story on our Patreon page, Patreon or not. It's open to everybody. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. Why do I keep doing that tonight? Patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patrons, Michelle Tripp. Hey, by the way, we usually like to take a little pause here to talk about some of the things we have going on. And this week is no different, although this week is interesting because it's going to be an answer to a question that we're going to have a little later on. So keep that in mind. This is an answer to one of the It Came Froms in the next section. Just pretend like we're not there yet, and then I'll reference this. Anyway, hey, we have a digital media lab. I don't know if you knew about that, but we have a Human Factors Cast digital media lab. Now, I love our lab. I love our lab mates. We are focused on communicating human factors. So this podcast is just one of the many things that we're working on over there. We have a ton of different exciting projects that we're working on, and it's really focused on communicating human factors in a fun, interesting, entertaining way. And we can do that in a variety of different ways. That's text-based media, that's audio, visual media. So there's even some experimental things like virtual reality. How do you learn in virtual reality about a complex topic like human factors? Maybe we're trying something. Who knows? If you want to come work in our lab, it's all volunteer. We invite you to do so. Reach out to us. You can get some work experience, enhance your portfolio by working on some of these projects. Get experience working with a worldwide distributed team. We have folks from all over the world, UK, Australia. I know I'm forgetting other places that are worldwide. US, like that's a given. But it's great for undergrads who are looking to get into grad school. There's the answer for later on. And you get to work with some industry tools that we got our hands on. So that's kind of fun too. All that being said, the lab is a great place. If you haven't heard of our lab and want to learn more or get in touch with us about potentially volunteering for the lab, reach out to us on any of our platforms. We're more than happy to have a chat with you, see if it's something that might work out for both of us. All right, let's get into this next part of the show we like to call.
It came from.
Oh, that's right. It came from. It came from where? It came from all over. This is the part of the search where part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. If you find any of these answers useful or helpful, give us a like to help other people find this content, no matter where you're watching or listening. So there's 3 tonight. This first one here is by Penguin Mumble on the UX research subreddit. They write, "Is UX research overhyped as a field? I'm curious about the big boom in UX research as a hot or trendy profession. It seems like everywhere I look, it's a person wanting to transition into UX research or a boot camp coaching service promising support with getting UX research, with getting into UX research. My question is UX research becoming overhyped and oversaturated?" Barry, what do you think?
Yes and no. I think UXR, all of it, it is trendy. It is a hot topic at the moment. There is lots of discussion, debate from both sides, the human factor side and the UX side, about is UX just part of human factors? And we've sort of talked before around our different views on that. I think it is great that it's getting lots of attention because it is trendy. It is making it look a bit sexy and that type of thing. And quite frankly, we've needed this for a long time. So yes, it's getting the attention. Is it being overhyped? Possibly, but I don't think that's a bad thing at the moment. And oversaturated, not yet. I think there is still plenty of UX jobs out there that I've seen. Particularly if you are taking the view that actually UX is part of the human factors domain, but I can see getting that way in the future. I can see, we've talked in the past about boot camps and things like that. Are people just trying to sort of say you can become a UX researcher if you do my boot camp for a weekend, and suddenly that makes you a fully fledged person, and yet people like us sitting here with like 10, 20 years experience, and we still are only scratching the surface of some of this stuff. So that's a definite maybe, and I think a little bit maybe of a it depends as well. What do you say, Nick?
The field's hot right now. The number one topic I talk to new mentees about is how do I get into the field of UX research? It's kind of crazy how many people have found UX research over the last couple years and have gravitated towards it. So the fact that people enjoy it is not surprising to me. The fact that so many people want to come to it is not surprising to me. The fact, I think, that we're looking at here from this perspective, is it overhyped? I don't necessarily think it is. I think it's perhaps I think a lot of people, employees, see value in it, but I don't think a whole lot of companies have got to that point where they're like, this is a necessary, right? And this is a fight that we've been fighting for years. But I think there's more and more people who want to get in and not enough opportunities. So therefore it looks saturated. And I think that's where we're at. And so it's harder for new folks to get into the field from transitioning from other fields. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it just, to me, it doesn't feel oversaturated. It feels like I was about to say, it feels like there needs to be more opportunities, but that would be oversaturated. It just feels like maybe. Is it overhyped? Maybe. It depends. There you go. All right, this next one, Barry. This one's interesting because they've neatly packaged up 12 questions for us. I think it's 12. I bet it better be 12. They've neatly packaged up many questions for us. So I think what we'll do is, since we have a little bit of time here, that first story today didn't really take us a whole lot of time. What we'll do is we'll kind of go through each question and answer it, and then we'll move on to the next one. I'd like to start with a couple of them here. This is from the Human Factors subreddit. This is Caglayan. I hope I said that right. Seeking Human Factors Engineering Career Help. Can you please answer these questions? I'm unsure if I should choose Human Factors Engineer as my career. Okay, so this is somebody who's completely looking at the field. Do they want to pick it? Mm-hmm. The ones that we don't really cover on the show, I'm going to kind of focus on. Like I said, there's 12 here, but I think there's I think we focus on the ones that maybe we haven't touched on so much or bear repeating. So
Mhm.
this first one here. How much do you think you could benefit the world with this career?
Loads. So from a basic standpoint of if you do human, I mean, firstly, we don't talk about human factors engineering very much in the grand scheme of things. So I'm
No.
really pleased to see something come out around human factors engineering. So quite close to my heart. So benefit the world with this career. Well, actually, now that we are starting to understand that human factors and HFE really works outside the workplace as well. So it isn't just purely scoped to the environment of our workplace. I think we're only just starting to really get this idea of almost meta-human factors and things like that. We mentioned earlier on in this episode around climate ergonomics, which is the application of human factors to global challenges. So just the fact that we can now think in that at that scale, at that size, I think we are now realizing that almost the world's your oyster. So fundamentally, at a really basic level, doing HFE, doing it properly means that you're going to get really good engineering solutions, your safe solutions that will delight your user because you've got them in that engineering development. So you will help at a small level creating good quality products, and you can save the world. Nick, have I missed anything with that scope there?
Yeah, you missed a couple things. So I'm gonna bring us back down to earth, pun intended. Here's the thing. You could save the world with this. Like human factors is a fairly ubiquitous field. It can be applied to literally every single thing on this planet. The part where I caution against that is or at least the thinking that you could save the world is that it will largely depend on what you're working on. So if you're working on something like, a very specific line on a very specific lane on a very specific street in a very specific small town in a very small town, rural America, right? Then you're going to save the people of that town. I still think it's worth considering that you can save people's lives absolutely, unequivocally, with human factors. And that in itself should be a reward, or you can improve people's lives. If you're not saving them, if you're not working on safety related things, you can absolutely improve people's lives by making things easier to do. And that in itself is one of the most rewarding things as a human factors practitioner that I get to do. When I look at the end of the day and I see, oh, this person has improved their output by whatever, that to me doesn't translate, oh, that means they've increased their efficiency. That means they're spending less time getting frustrated on the things that were holding them back before. And so it matters which lens you look at the world through. You could save the world with this if you were working in climate ergonomics. Yeah, absolutely. If you were working in standards, think about how many lives you would save with standards. Like that's a lot, right? So thinking about it from that lens, a lot. You could absolutely benefit the world, but largely depends on the scope. Do you have any rebuttals to that, Barry? So I feel like
No, I'd agree with you. But if you do want to save the world, there is now a fully funded PhD that is available here in the UK that you get to work with me and Cardiff University, and that is an open thing right now to be able to come and save the world through human factors engineering. Just saying.
Look at that. All right, Barry, this next question is really interesting. Do you have any regrets about human factors engineering in this career?
I have. Do I have regrets? Yes, I do have one regret, I think. And it's not regret's a strong word, I think,
It is, right?
because
Loaded.
so in many ways, I wish I'd known about human factors earlier. We talked before about where my sort of career path and the fact that my initial degree is command and control. So I'm an engineer first, and then I found human factors. I wish in many ways I'd found it earlier, so I could have done more with it. But then if I'd found it earlier, I wouldn't have done everything else that I'd done, which then influenced the way I work about things now, etc., etc., etc. So it's a sort of regret that is kind of non-realistic because I would have got there. I think I wish I wish I'd had more, I guess, confidence to go for some different types of. So I've always been. There's been a lot of jobs I had early in my career that I took the safer option perhaps, and stayed in the domain that I know very well, and I had potentially a couple of opportunities where I could have broken out of it and done something else, or stayed within human factors, but maybe gone into slightly different domains. But then again, I then wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So they're not really regrets, but they're almost what ifs, almost they're hypotheticals almost. And I do sort of muse on them occasionally.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you regret anything?
I do. Is it career specific? I mean, do you consider the podcast career specific? Because I regret bringing you on. I'm just kidding.
That wouldn't be a first.
Look at us banter. No, there's actually one moment I really do regret with the podcast, and I will tell you that moment in the post shows.
Okay. Got that down.
No, there's one moment, and I do feel like that had maybe a negligible impact on my career in some way. But in terms of career specific regrets, I think the biggest regret for me is getting so in my head about a project that I was working on that I had kind of a mental breakdown over it. And I will roughly describe the situation. So I was working on a project where there was a high profile project I was working on, and there were some real life and death consequences associated with this product. And ultimately, I was sort of I had in my head that I was the sole person responsible for the quick reference guide for this this system. And ultimately, I was on a hike, and I'm like, if I don't get this thing right, the people are going to use it wrong, and it's going to people their lives. And is that on me then? This whole distribution of responsibility, especially in military applications. And it's like, that to me weighed on me so heavily. But it's like, no, don't get out of your head, Nick, because you got to think about it from this perspective. You writing this thing up is going to save people's lives. And if they misinterpret what you wrote, you gave it your best effort. And it went through many reviews before it got to that desk. So that's how I had to think about it to get myself out of it. So thinking about it in the sense of, I am the sole person responsible for this, and I not doing a good job would, take lives from this earth. That was my biggest regret, is to think about things that way. I don't think about things that way anymore. So there's that. Let's see here. We got. Let's do two more here. Do you feel independent and flexible in your role as a human factors engineer?
I'm in the lucky position that I run my own company and I get to pick and choose the jobs that I do on the whole. So yes, but equally, you still work within the framework of what it is that we're doing. So I do have generally have independence, but you're still reporting into a client. You're still reporting into a project. You're still supporting. You're still, it's not like I can sit down and lay down the law on things that are going on. I can give my my viewpoints, my ideas, my thoughts, and I can, like I say, I can pick up and put down jobs that I want to do, as opposed to the ones that, being told to do it. If somebody tells me to do a job, then I tend to tell them to go away. I'm lucky that I can do that. So yes, I think, fundamentally, I'm in a very, very lucky and privileged position to be able to do that. Not everybody's the same. I've been in that position where you're part of a team, or almost. Sometimes it can be a blessing, sometimes it's a curse when you're the one human factors person employed as part of a team, and you have to go and do something. you know that it might not be the most optimum thing to do. It's not necessarily the wrong thing to do, but it's not the right thing to do. And you just, you basically get it down on high, suck it up, buttercup, because that's what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons I went and tried to set up my own consultancy, was because I didn't like that sort of. I don't know whether it comes across, but I don't like being told what to do. I kind of struggle with authority. So yeah. What about you, Nick? Are you flexible? Are you independent or?
Yes and yes. So I think there's an interesting thing going here with this question. As us trained as human factors practitioners, we have the flexibility to approach problems in different ways. And I brought up this analogy, many times, but the jack of all, master of none, still better than a master of one. So I think in a lot of ways we are approaching problems in through a lens of, okay, which tool can we use in our toolbox that's going to solve this problem? And you have the flexibility as a practitioner to decide. A lot of times, even if you're working in a team, you have a say. I've never worked on a team where they've completely disregarded your expertise, even on a human factors team, right? Like a team of human factors practitioners, they've disregarded your expertise. I've never had that. They've at least taken it into consideration. Okay, you're laughing, but like,
I've had somebody who's tried.
yeah, right.
I won.
But I mean, you can be persuasive, and you might not win, but and I've had that happen, but you can certainly at least have other people listen to you. So flexibility in the way that you approach problems, independent in the way that how you sort of approach those problems as well, unless you've like specifically outlined, we're going to approach this problem in this way. So yes, I think short answer, yes. All right, let's do one more. Now, Barry, I want you to pick this next one. Which one do you think that we have not covered enough on the show? Because there's quite a few here. And I might even pull this for next week.
Well, yeah. There's one here about values, but I think we need to do that another time when we've actually got time to think about it in a bit more detail, because I think that's quite a biggie. I guess for me, well, it's an interesting. What is your biggest fear for this position, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, good one. So you're asking me, or am I asking you that one?
Right, I'll start. I'm asking you.
Okay. My biggest fear for this position is that I think I talked a little bit about it before, with respect to getting so in my head about a responsibility that's on me. So I guess my fear would be that I get back to that level where I feel that anything that I do will impact the people I'm working with so significantly that it will either cause harm or stop, things from functioning entirely in a way that shifts these fundamental, like right now I work in supply chain logistics, right? So it's completely different from military domain, but is there something that I'm going to do that's going to throw a wrench in supply chain logistics that's going to mess us up for years? So that's getting in my head about these things that are larger than life, because of your role as a human factors practitioner. What about you, Barry? What is your biggest fear, and how do you deal with it?
So I've got two. I've got a personal one and a professional one, I guess. So my personal one, and I've talked about this before, is imposter syndrome. I have that constantly all the time, and with what I've got coming up this year, do I feel that massive? That it's, that you're sitting there going, yeah, I'm fully qualified in what I do, this, that, and the other, and yet, do you feel that? It's so. But I guess the biggest fear I have, on a day-to-day basis in projects, being, and certainly I'm lucky enough to have worked in some decent positions on some quite, deep, quite big projects. What happens if people just don't pay any attention? So they turn around and say, yeah, you got your human factor stuff. Great. Thanks for that. Whatever. Not bothered. We are taking a project decision. We don't care. And really that, I've seen it happen before in other projects where they've made a decision that they want to cut something and human factors is the thing that gets cut. Thankfully, it's not been one of mine, but I've been close enough to it to sit there and work with the people who go, wow. And that's I guess my biggest fear is that I'm not persuasive enough of the value of what it is that we do, and therefore it gets cut, and therefore I put lives at risk by not being strong enough, by being a strong enough advocate. Thankfully, not there yet, but it's still. I mean, working on some. I'm possibly working on the largest value project right now that I've ever worked on, and that fear is real almost on a daily basis.
Yeah. So it's like we have the same fear about ultimately impacting the people. So
Yeah.
good.
And
All right, we got.
the second half of that was how have you overcome it? And I don't know yet.
Yeah, same. I didn't answer that on mine.
I'll let you know when I retire about what I did about that, but living it every day.
All right, we got one more here. This one's by SSJ Kosh on the Human Factor subreddit. How do I gain experience for grad school? I got denied from a Human Factors and Ergonomics program for not having related work experience. So far, most of the work I've done has been in mental health field. How do I build up my resume and work experience to cater to a Human Factors degree? Barry?
Wow. I'm quite intrigued that they've not got been thrown out of a program for not having work related experience, an educational program for that. Anyway, so we've sort of mentioned, we boxed around this quite a few times before. So you work in the mental health field, so you do a lot of stuff there that might not have the exact words that we're looking at, but do a lot of the stuff that we do. Things like the way that you engage with patients is very similar to user engagement. The way that you get feedback and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of things that you do that cross over. Identify them and work out the difference in language, and that will help you build up them little bits of your resume. So that is almost trying to get the something for nothing piece. But then you've got Nick might mention something about some online lab. I'll leave that for him to talk about. But fundamentally, there are things out there. There's online learning. There is companies that will get you can look for placements and things like that. It's getting that balance right between what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you're doing this alongside work, or you're happy, or you're just trying to find a different. If you've got the time to be able to go and look for different jobs, but look internships and things like that. Nick, have you got any sort of online resources that you think might help with this type of thing?
Hey, do you remember that part that probably most of the people skipped because everyone skips that part and they just go to it came from? So I answered this. The Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab, communicating human factors, exciting projects, work experience, enhance your portfolio. It's not an advertisement for it, but yeah, get in a lab, get some, in terms of how to get experience there, do your own personal projects, that type of thing. But joining a lab is probably a really great way because they have a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and there's no shortage of work that you get to work on that have direct impacts towards human factors a lot of the times, right? So that's where I would say, we have a lab, so do that. All right, let's get into one more thing. Needs no introduction. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So my one more thing I thought was going to be really, 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 really exciting, and it turns out it was sort of exciting with a bit of a damn squib at the end. And I'm talking about the Virgin Orbit launch of Cosmic Girl and Launcher One. So Cosmic Girl was the idea behind Virgin Orbit was that it's 737, and it's a 737 with a rocket slung underneath it, and then it takes its cargo and puts it into space, into orbit. Or at least that was the plan. It didn't quite work like that, and I'm not going to go too much into the detail about the outcome because I think we hopefully next week just vote. We might talk about the entire thing next week. But the main thing I want to focus on is they did a live coverage through YouTube. Now, that's not new because SpaceX has been doing that, NASA's been doing that, and you get the talking heads, you know where they're at in the mission and all this sort of stuff. But I have to say that the way that Virgin Orbit did it was terrible. It was appalling. It was there was something about it. You'd have thought that they would have looked at the way that some of these other companies have done it and just realized that you cannot have just big screens. I mean, basically they had a nice little display where you were, you had a bit of a flight timeline where you were in the particular mission. You had some key stage information. So what were you doing? What was the time? What time since takeoff? Time to the next thing coming along. But then they had some talking head interviews with Secretary of State and things like that. Then they just got into this bit, say, well, it was almost like we couldn't be bothered to fill this anymore. We haven't got any more talking heads. So they just had a big screen said, we'll be right back. And that stayed up there for a good 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then they'll do a little bit more. And then this big screen would come back. And he's like, wait, 54,000 people had gone into YouTube to watch this. And they just sat watching the equivalent of a lift music screen. I was so not disappointed in as look what they're doing, but the missed opportunity, the fact that this was the first launch of a space vehicle from the UK, such an opportunity, and it was just like, oh well, never mind.
You know what grinds my gears about that? We are a small operation here, and even we had placeholders for when we did a live stream from HFES earlier last year, right? We had like those 15-minute spots. Like you're still getting bits and pieces, even if they are advertisements. You at least have something there to keep you going in the background instead of.
And we even had because we had people not turn up when we expected them. We had backups for things like that. We thought that might happen, and so I get for some of this. I mean, this was really early stage, so it was still they were doing this. We'll be right back when the plane was taking off, or when when it was just starting to orbit. I can understand around the second stage burn piece because that's when things started to go wrong, and they were getting some suboptimal burns, and so you could sort of see them maybe going there, going, oh, hold on a second. We need to get things sorted out and we don't have a message yet. That's bad planning, but forgivable. But to do it so early on and clearly just nothing there, I was like, yeah. Anyway, that's probably been the longest one more thing that I've done in quite a while. But I was frustrated and annoyed.
I'm sorry it didn't work out. And maybe we'll talk about it next week. Or maybe we'll talk about CES next week. Who knows? You the listeners know. My one more thing this week was so I didn't talk about this last week because I talked about potty training, but it is a new year. And I have been over the last couple years making New Year's resolutions that have been non-sticky. Like they're soft in a way. And so like last year, my goal was to set up a team of individuals to help me out, right? Doctor, dentist, eye doctor, just move to a new place. And so it's like getting all that stuff in order. And I did. And I feel like I accomplished that New Year's resolution. This year, it's really nebulous and something that I'm even struggling with even saying, but just being at peace with letting some things go. I have a lot of games in my backlog that I want to play, a lot of TV shows that I want to watch, a lot of movies that I want to watch, a lot of books that I want to read that I haven't got to read, a lot of projects that I want to do that I can't necessarily do. I don't have the time for everything. And so my goal this year is to just be okay with letting some things go that I will never, ever do, even though I want to do them or work on them or whatever. Like there's just being at peace. And it's so hard because I'm like, I could just not do that book, but I'm a completionist and I want to, and it's hard. I struggle with it even right now as I'm talking to you about it. I can't fully let go. And so my resolution is to just let go of something. And with that, I'm going to let go of this episode. So that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about roadway hazards, I guess, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 239, where we talk about, can we define sex as risky driving behavior? Comment wherever you're listening what you think of the story this week. Did you like that report? I don't know. For more in-depth discussion, you can join us on our Discord community. Visit us on our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. Right now, you can stop what you're doing and you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcatcher you listen to or our website, wherever. It just helps us other people find our show. Tell other people about us. That's the second way that you can help. Word of mouth is really, really important for the way that we operate here. We're a small niche community. And if you can tell one or two people about this show and say, hey, these guys talked about the Transportation Research Board's recap report, and it was a great episode. I'm putting that energy out there. Maybe you guys will too. Or three, if you have the financial means to do so, we have a wonderful Patreon page with a bunch of rewards for our supporters. If you have the financial means to do so, we like to give back to you. We have a bunch of fun things over there. Like I said, we just went through a big refresh on all of our stuff. There's new podcasts coming out beyond Human Factors Minute, just for you all. There's our academy. So if you want a part of any of that, go take a look. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about your disappointment with the Virgin launch?
Well, if you want to find out about how I was disappointed, particularly about the way it was portrayed on YouTube, then you can find me on Twitter and other social media at Baz_K. Or if you want to come and hear my amazing interview that's going to launch in a couple of weeks, come and find me on 1202 The Human Factors Podcast, which is at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Okay, I just realized I got rid of the music. I need to bring that music back. Uh-oh. What happened to the music? There we go. Okay, music back loud. Woof. How did that end up being one of our longest episodes in a long time? It was one more thing.
No, it wasn't. It was we actually talked about the article for the full right until the half hour. So whereas I think you thought that we'd probably talked about it less, but we talked about it quite a lot.
I thought we usually go 40 minutes on the article.
No, it's not. We normally do half hour on the article. And so
all right.
Yeah, no, it was good.
In my head about things. All right. Well, yeah. No, it's good. Good.
Oh, I made a note. You were going to tell us something about.
Oh yeah.
Comment.
Regrets.
Yes.
Regrets. Yes. So this is the reward for everyone sticking around here in the post show. It was 2016. We had just started the podcast that summer. HFES happened in October, so we were like 4 months old at that time. I was still learning journalistic etiquette the hard way.
Right.
So I went to a panel, a NASA panel about astronauts on the ISS. And I had a lapel mic on, and I just recorded the whole thing. I went up to him afterwards. Okay, and it had some heavy hitters on the panel.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I went up to him and said, "Hey, I just recorded that whole conversation. Can I post it?"
I bet that was an interesting conversation.
Ooh. Yeah, I was told I said things that probably shouldn't be made public outside this room.
Nice.
I feel like, again, heavy hitters in the field.
And tell me you posted it, right?
No. I said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Look, here's the recording on my phone. I will just delete this right now. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. I am really sorry for that.
And they said, well, just because you take due diligence with that, Nick, we will take you on board and teach you how to do scientific journalism. Yeah?
No.
No, they just boot the other building.
No, they said if you really want the recording, you can go talk to the people in the back.
Oh, fair.
I said, okay. Well, okay. Then all that stuff you just told me about saying things that you probably shouldn't have said. Is that what? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Nah.
See, actually, I guess one of my regrets, podcasting regrets, is also to do with NASA. So that's weird.
So funny. We have that in common.
Yeah. So if you go back into, I think it was is it series 1 or series 2, where I do the interview with the Artemis, with the Orion team. And again, these are my early days of learning how to interview, and I still haven't really got it. But the idea that I had not one person, but I had 3 people to interview, and I was like, wow, it's going to be the longest episode ever. I'm going to have to chunk it up into because it's going to be hours, and I'm just going to have all this content, and I'm going to have to edit it down and all this. And I was so excited, and it was dry within half an hour. It was one of them that was, and not through any fault of theirs, not through any fault of mine. It's a really good episode. It's a good listen. But I thought I was going to get so much more out of it, and I think I got starstruck. Just with I'm talking to NASA. It's amazing.
Okay, so do you think you got starstruck, or do you think that NASA trains their employees to communicate effectively, and part of that is communicating efficiently?
I think there was a bit of both there. I mean, they answered all the questions I asked. They answered them really well. There was no skimping, no nothing. I got full answers, exactly what I asked for. I don't know what I expected in my head. I just expected more, or something. And it was probably unrealistic on my own front. And there was definite lessons there. I've had and even now, since I've had some other ones that I expected, it's a bit like what we do on shows. I guess I expect to do a short, I have somebody I'm interviewing, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work very well. I'm not really looking forward to this. It's not going to, I don't see where it's going to go to be interesting. But you chat and you find something, and it ends up being brilliant. And then you get other ones where you're like, oh, this is clearly going to be fabulous. And you're like, that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
We have shows like that.
Well, that's what I mean. It's you have some of them, and we have some topics, don't you? Where you sit there, go, this is clearly going to be golden, and you're like, oh, we haven't maybe done that as much justice as we possibly could have done. But equally, then you have other ones. I don't know, talking about 44-page reports, where you think this is going to be really, really hard to do. Yet we filled all the time quite efficiently.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
So, Barry, can I get your opinion on something? How do you feel about hosting the show, if I can find a replacement, for myself in February sometime?
I'm sure that will be fine. I can't see any problems with that. I mean, how badly can I break it?
Well, here's the thing. I'd potentially still be here producing.
Oh,
I went to the dentist the other day.
Right.
Okay, you see where this is going.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to talk, are you?
No, I'm not going to be able to talk. I just found out that my wisdom teeth, which I've had all my life, they're really far back there, and so I can't brush them efficiently.
Yeah.
And because of that, when I got a cleaning last time, they must have knocked something loose. And because I wasn't able to clean it as well, it just started decaying really bad. And so I got to get my top wisdom teeth taken out.
Ooh. I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
No, it does. No, I'm really, really freaking nervous about it.
I'd like to say it's fine. It's not a problem. They're professionals. You'll be brilliant. But it really hurts. Though saying that, apparently what I had with mine was a genetic thing where on one of my wisdom teeth, it has you have the sort of 4 roots that come down off the big tooth.
Mm-hmm.
I had a genetic thing where all of my dad's side of my family has one of them roots turns into a right angle.
Oh,
and
no.
so when they come to pull it out, it's not the most pleasant experience. So on the one side, I had, quite frankly, the most horrific experience I've ever had. But then when they come to do the other side, it was dead easy. So I've had quite a
Hmm.
lot of teeth extracted one way or another, mainly because they weren't falling out when they should have done. You'll be fine.
I told them, I was like, okay, look, I don't want to be awake for this. Can you guys put me asleep? And they're like, we can't do that here. We can refer you, not in network. Okay, this is a whole American healthcare system stuff, but like the ones they referred me to were not in network, and I could have called around and been like, yeah, I find someone in network, but I just didn't feel like dealing with it. So I came back to them and was like, okay, what kind of powerful medication can you give me that will just, like, oh, we can give you laughing gas. It's like, all right, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll still
I
feel
found
it.
Well, if they give you the right injections and stuff as well, then generally, in my experience of having various bits of work done, when they turn around and say, "This is fine, this won't hurt," because you get all this, that's when it hurts. It's when they turn around and say, "This might hurt," that actually I've generally found it fine. It's just weird, but yeah, just having I just don't. Just dentists, lovely people, but I just wish they'd stay out my mouth. I do get away from the point of them, really, but there you go.
Oh boy, yeah, I am so looking forward to that. So anyway, yeah, I'll need you to fill in on
Fill in.
on that date if I, yeah, haha. But I would like to try to do a show with you and somebody else if possible, and then the backup can be a recast.
We could give that a go. Yeah.
Or if I can talk, maybe I'll be a panelist. But yeah, it'd be. Barry, what's the story this week? It's happening the day before, so it's not the day of. I
Right.
might be okay, but I'll still probably be in a lot of pain. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm sure we will make whatever. We'll make it happen.
Okay, good. And one of the reasons why I want that show to be a thing is because we're promoting a thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you saw it earlier, but that's the thing that we
That-
will
that-
start promoting that. That's the week that we're starting promoting that, and so it's like, yeah, we need.
Cool. That sounds awesome.
Cool.
Now I'm ready for sleep.
Oh, me too.
It's a very long day today. It's so I've been at a so I went to visit a client site this morning, so I've been in meetings with the suppliers and stuff all morning, and yes, it's been it's and then driving back, and it's been a day.
It has been a day.
I'm just reading the comments on YouTube.
I would love for them to put me to sleep, but they're out of network to do that.
So what, out of just from a Brit perspective, because we don't have that, does that mean that your insurance supplier doesn't have them within their payment thing, whatever it is? Right.
Basically. In
See,
so many
universal
words.
healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I'd have to look, but it's one of those things where it's like there's not a whole lot of options.
you'll be fine. Injections and I don't know, some whiskey. But,
Yeah, I'm just worried because like I told them, I was like, I had a root canal where I felt everything, like no amount of medications could, and I'm wondering that if oh great, okay, great,
genetic. Yeah.
all right, fantastic, that's wonderful to hear.
So that's what happened when I had my wisdom teeth. So when they took the one side out, they were injecting, and so I did the usual injections, and they were like, right, can you when they tap your tooth and say, okay, can you feel that? And I'm like, no, it's fine. And then they started to pull, and I'm like, no, I can feel that. That's, and they're like, no, you probably think you can feel it, but you can't. It's probably just psychological. And I was 16, 17 at the time, and I was like, no, I was, oh, okay, that's psychological. So then they started pulling it again, And they're like, no, that's not psychological. That's real pain. I'm like, okay, well, so they give me more injections, and then try to pull again. And I was like, nope, that still hurts. And then they give me one more round of injections, and they would then start pulling. And they were like, I was like, no, that still hurts. That's really, really painful. And they're like, well, we've given you all the injection that we can. That's all we can do. And I was like, well, okay, can we just grind it down and leave it? And they're like, well, not really, because we've got it halfway out now. And I was like, oh. So I was like, right, just basically getting hold of the handlebars of the chair and like sort of gripping them. Now I'm just like, right, go for it, and just rip these chair arms as strong as I possibly could. And yeah, that was painful. So hopefully you won't have that. Has that helped at all?
Yeah. So like I'm wondering if it's going to feel differently than a root canal.
Yes, it does. No, it absolutely does. Root canals hurt. And that root canal when I had mine knocked me out for like a day afterwards, a couple of days afterwards. The wisdom teeth didn't do that at all. Once it was out, it was out. It was done. The root canals really hurt.
Okay. So you're saying a root canal is worse than...
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Woo. Woo. Dentist. Going to a dentist.
Isn't a dentist an oral surgeon anyway?
I don't. Hang on. Let's see what the credentials are.
I'm quite bemused as well by the choice you have in the state, because you do go and research the actual individuals and all that sort of stuff, whereas we go and get surgery and generally you get who you get, which is I guess one of the downsides. But
okay. Oh, come on. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we do get a choice, and in fact, I'm really happy with my dentist. I like her a lot, and the place I go is very gentle with my teeth, and I really appreciate that.
Because we do have that in the UK as well, because the dentistry is one part that is mostly privatized. So we do, if you're going to get, you can still get some NHS stuff, but you can really tell the difference between NHS care and private care. So. Apparently, I'm due a dentist appointment as well.
Cool. Looks like my dentist got their high school diploma, so I'm good.
That's right.
No, they're good.
They can count and stuff. What really amused me is when they would talk. So there's obviously, whenever socialized healthcare gets talked about in the States, they always trying to use the example of UK healthcare and to show people with all of the the rotted teeth and on big placards and stuff, and said that's people from the UK. And he's like, I've never actually seen anybody in the UK looking like that. That's just a really weird thing to do. So maybe I just don't hang around in the right places.
Maybe. Okay, so yes, they're dental surgeons, so that's good. I thought they were, but yeah, they just can't use the put me to sleep, which at their location they can't use anesthesia. So, but
you have to have an ER room nearby,
yeah,
as in within like feet. So.
Yeah. I'd love to. So yeah, it'll be okay. If it's better than a root canal, I'll be fine.
Yes.
I'll be fine.
The fact that root canals like take weeks to do as well. To go and get the different bits.
Can I-
further.
So there's like a whole saga of me, and this was like right around the time that we started doing video too for the show. There's a whole saga of me realizing that I have a tooth infection that like weeks of like waiting. I'm like, nope, that didn't do it. They like filled it and then they got too far in, and then an infection got all the way in, and then I was sitting there like completely numb, like just using Oragel like every hour when you're supposed to do it like every 12 hours. I'm just like,
More
like
of
I
it.
need. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And yeah, I'm trying to remember. So that was about. That must have been like March of 21. Wait, no, March of 20. Yeah, March of 21. Does that sound right? So what were we doing on the show around March 21? Now I got to go back and look. Episodes. I always have our stuff up just for a quick reference here.
More organized than me. That's one.
Well, that's why I have it up, because then I can make things like, oh, and hey, we actually talked to Paul Salmon about this cyclist. March. So we were talking about helping firefighters with. I got to find the week that I was out. So Feb 26, March 5, March 12, March 19, March 26, April 2. Oh, no, it must have been after April, because we were, April 16, 21. Oh, wait, 23, 30, May 7. Oh, it was in between May 7. Oh, yes, it was, because Blake and Elise did episode 205. And then, so I was out May 7, and then the next week after that, I was out too. So it was like 2 weeks where I was just, that whole like week, that whole month of May, I was just like completely knocked on my ass because of terrible dental hygiene. Wait, did we put the one more thing is at the end? Yeah. Let's see. I just. Yeah, I'm just listening to a quick conversation here. Let's see.
I don't think I'll be getting up very early tomorrow morning. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, my mute button has worked well. I haven't coughed down the microphone or anything.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was actually out of town because I was looking at places here. So it must have been before. Jeez. Sorry. I'm just like memory lane here. You gotta like look at the old place. I got like shit all over the background and hold on. Hang on. This is fun to look at here. Where's share my screen? There it is. All right. Here you go. This is episode 206. So like just,
wow.
I mean, look at that baby face with the short hair.
Oh,
And then everything in the background, I got a skeleton hanging out up there.
how's he doing?
And yeah, this setup was not great. Just that place was not great either.
It's all about the learning.
Yeah. Hey, look at this production quality now, though.
Yeah. Well, I did my interview yesterday, the day before. Days are merging into one. Day before. Or was it yesterday? Anyway, and I got complimented on just how professional everything looks and stuff. And I was like, I'd like to take credit for it, but I stole it all from my friend, or at least all the ideas behind it. Anyway.
And
So-
you mentioned your friend.
I did.
Okay, good. Then we're good. Then I have no issues with you. It's what is it? At free use with attribution.
Yes, it's not. It's CCA something, whatever. One of them.
Hey, oh wait, shoot, we're done. Let's wrap
Oh,
up.
we're
Hey,
Yes.
well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Barry's gonna go to sleep. He's got a very early morning tomorrow, and I'm gonna go do some post production on this stuff and get that out into everybody's ear holes as soon as I can.
Skills. Cool. Well, thank you all, and we shall see you next time.
And see ya on the flippy flip. Bye.
Bye.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast Network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you,